Penguin Random House Audio presents Hope Dies Last, Visionary People Across the World Fighting to Find Us a Future, by Alan Weisman. Read for you by Fred Sanders, with the acknowledgments read by the author. This audiobook includes a downloadable PDF containing maps of select regions discussed in the book. To Sister Rochelle, who taught me how much words matter, and to wife Becky, who taught me what matters even more. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yo he preferido hablar de cosas imposibles porque de lo posible se sabe demasiado. I prefer to speak of impossible things because we know all too well what's possible. Silvio Rodriguez. Chapter 1. Cradle to Grave. 1. Origin. How Azam al-Wash wonders, is it possible that he's never been here before? Born in this cradle land to a family from Babylon, taught by his father how to fish for shad and barbel in marshes where people still lived like the ancients in reed houses on floating islands, he knows his country's storied waterways like his own veins and arteries. But now he's seeing something for the first time. Strange because, except for his years in exile, all his life it's been so near, just downriver from the city of Basra, where he attended university, although needing a police escort to get here might explain why he didn't come earlier. It's a tense spot, Iraq's tiny 36-mile wedge of coastline between its wealthier, powerful neighbors at the top of what the Kuwaitis call the Arabian Gulf and the Iranians call the Persian Gulf. We just call it the Gulf, he murmurs, unable to tear his gaze away. Azam, still trim in his mid-60s, clean-shaven with buzz-cut silver hair that narrows to a widow's peak, his blue hoodie unzipped to the breeze, is considered a national hero in Iraq, internationally as well. Winner of the 2013 Goldman Environmental Prize, the Green Nobel, for miraculously resuscitating the Mesopotamian marshes of his boyhood, the biggest wetland in the Middle East. In 1993, that lush convergence of the Tigris and Euphrates floodplains, believed by many to be the biblical Eden, had shriveled to barren, dust-blown expanses after Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein intentionally diverted the fabled rivers, draining thousands of verdant square miles in order to flush Shiite rebels out from hiding in the marsh's impenetrable reed and papyrus thickets. The damage was irreversible, Azam kept hearing from biologists, as he begged the U.S. State Department for funds to reflood the marshes after U.S.-led forces deposed Saddam in 2003. The roots and desiccated seed banks were over 10 years old. Their chemistry irreparably changed, a CIA environmental contractor told him. It's probably impossible to revive them. Azam was an engineer, not an ecologist. But navigating exile and building a career had taught him that impossible often masks a lack of imagination. If there was one lesson he'd learned, it was that nature is resilient. She's seen all of this before. How will we know unless we try? He asked. Today, with the fate of not just a wetland, but his entire planet in play, Azam al-Wash's stubborn persistence that proved experts wrong is needed everywhere, he believes. For our civilization to continue, if not our very existence, will demand vision that transcends conventional wisdom and boundaries. Humanity's astonishing success as a species has resulted in a dangerously lopsided world. With most unfrozen land now devoted to the needs and nourishment of just one species, our own, we've literally pushed most of our earthly companions off the planet. All but 4% of mammalian weight is either us or our livestock. Nature, the fossil record warns, doesn't permit such imbalance for long. Already our exhaust has packed the sky with heat-trapping gases that wither our crops, trigger whirlwinds, and alternately and increasingly rain flood or hellfire. Yet we can't seem to stop, so poles keep shrinking and plastic keeps coming. As an existential ultimatum threatens, what realistically are our hopes? What or who can get us through this? Amid pervasive, chilling uncertainty, Azam al-Wash is among a worldwide legion of kindred visionaries, often unknown to one another, toiling in separate arenas to find humanity a path through this treacherous century to a livable future. Neither in denial nor naively optimistic, knowing full well how daunting the odds are, they nevertheless refuse to quit trying. Sometimes their local challenges turn out to have global implications. Azam Alwash went from saving his cherished fishing spots to designing a plan to revitalize all that was once Mesopotamia into the world's bridge from an oil-based past to a sun-blessed future. Though repeatedly thwarted, he keeps on, banging into hard realities until something budges. The last half-kilometer to Iraq's southernmost point had taken them over a single-land sand causeway atop an embankment barely higher than the mudflats and tide pools on either side. A tattered, wind-whipped black flag marked the road's end, beyond which the tide pools continued, dissolving into an unreadable gray horizon. On his iPhone, Azam checks Google Maps, which shows him surrounded by blue. "It says we're underwater," he tells Amir Naji. Amir, 31, with short wiry hair and a trimmed brown beard, is an environmental engineer at Iraq's sole port, Qasr, on a nearby inlet by the Kuwaiti border. He's long wanted to meet Azam, and thanks to an uncle who knows the police captain, was happy to arrange security for this excursion. "The tide is still out," he explains, indicating a faint band where open water shimmers a few hundred meters distant. He then points east to a line of silhouettes. Cargo vessels lumbering up the Shatt al-Arab, the river that forms where the Tigris and Euphrates merge, 200 kilometers north. Halfway down its length, the Shatt al-Arab becomes Iraq's fraught border with Iran. The ships hug the Iranian shore. Heedless of the March wind in a light cotton pullover, Amir is from Iraq's second biggest city, Basra, an hour upriver. The world's largest date palm forest once lined the Shatt al-Arab's banks there. Then in 1980, Saddam Hussein attacked Iran to annex its oil fields. The murderous war that ensued, Saddam used nerve gas, Iran laid waste wherever it counterattacked, ended in an exhausted truce after 8 years and 500,000 deaths on each side. In Basra, on the front lines, millions of date palms also fell victim. In January 1991, the year Amir was born, a few months after Saddam had invaded Kuwait for the same reason, came the Americans to rescue U.S. oil interests. For 5 weeks they bombed Baghdad and Basra non-stop before storming Kuwait and pushing out the dictator's Republican Guard troops. As they fled, on his orders, they set fire to 600 Kuwaiti oil wells. When U.S. forces left without deposing Saddam, a nationwide rebellion erupted to finish the job. But the Republican Guard that cowered before the Americans had no qualms about mauling its own citizenry into submission. A decade later, Afghanistan-based jihadis, most of them Saudi, crashed hijacked planes into Manhattan skyscrapers and the Pentagon. Under a crackpot pretext that Saddam was somehow responsible, Americans returned with British allies. The 2003 Battle of Basra was among that invasion's first and worst. This time, the Americans stayed nearly 10 years. Between bomb attacks by guerrillas resisting their occupation and U.S. military reprisals, Iraq, once deemed the flower of Arab culture for its poetry, became one of the most dangerous places on earth. After the Americans finally pulled out in 2011, giving a justification as fanciful as the one that had brought them, that Iraqi forces were now capable of defending their own homeland, ISIS leapt into the breach. The Islamic State's savagery made it possible to miss the hated American occupiers. It took 4 years and the intervention of Iran to finally drive ISIS out. Except now, Iran has stayed. With Iraq's weak government often locked in parliamentary paralysis, in much of the country, Iranian militias are the tacit, corrupt local authority. Amir endures their highway checkpoints daily, going from his city, now rubbled by repeated wars, to his various jobs at the port. Sometimes he's a cargo inspector, sometimes a health, safety, and environmental supervisor for foreign petroleum companies operating here. Everybody here works for them, he tells Azam. Southern Iraq has 3 of the world's biggest oil fields. Dozens of tall flares there burn constantly because neither Saddam nor any government after his invested in infrastructure to capture the methane. When summer temperatures here reach 51 degrees Celsius, nearly 124.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?